Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Redeemed Marriage Podcast. Rusty and Heather Bryant are back with you today in the middle of the summer. Doesn't feel like it for everybody because some people done started back to school.
Somebody had to go back to work this week.
Yeah. Well, it's a good time to get back into a rhythm, and so part of that is getting back to a rhythm with you guys. And sorry about last week. For those of you that watch us on YouTube, we had a little technical difficulty. We think we have it all fixed this week. We will see when we finish this recording. But yeah, if you've never watched us on YouTube, go over there. You know, you can see our expressions. You can see when we look at each other funny like that. What are you talking about? When we laugh at each other, when we make fun of each other.
And you can count how many times you wear your sip hat during the YouTube videos.
Well, so, okay. All right, let's see. I don't even know where to go with this, but I was gonna say, it's whenever I wear the sip hat. The sip hat is not like a nice hat. It's like it's the one that's comfortable. It feels good. And I also saw today on social media that we are only 6 Saturdays away from college football starting back.
So you're getting ready.
So I got excited. I even have an Ole Miss shirt on too.
You do.
So you
do a good job mixing up your hats. I think that's one is your favorite.
Well, you know what? You can also go and look and see if Heather wears the same clothes over and over again. How about that? Now everybody's going to be dissecting everything that we wear. We don't really care, to be real honest.
Well, and normally we record on Sunday afternoons, but we're actually recording on Saturday
today. And on those Sunday afternoons, we usually
look a little nicer.
But
we went to church, and when our church doesn't dress up, but we look a little bit nicer than we do on a Saturday afternoon. But we're here with you, and we had a little extra time today. Plus tomorrow, World Cup final. We got stuff to do tomorrow. And we had a busy weekend this weekend because our youngest son turned 20 years old. It was just
we don't even have a teenager in the house. I mean, living. Oh my goodness,
gosh,
we're old.
I didn't think about that. Like
sorry.
He's 20.
Sorry to.
I don't know. I just think they're grown when they're 21. I mean, not that they're grown then, but
no.
But I just feel like 21. You're like, they're 21.
Are we grown?
I guess, maybe.
We're trying to figure it out, too. So part of figuring it out, though, is hearing your questions and trying to answer them. It helps us figure things out, and also it helps to pass along some information to you guys. So this summer, we've been doing our summer short series where we've been answering questions from listeners. We had a great question last week that was specific to physical intimacy, and you need to go back and listen to that because we weren't real. We think we knew who the question was directed at, and we believe it was directed at the person who had betrayed their spouse.
That's right.
So if there's been some sort of broken trust, betrayal, particularly when it comes to sex and physical intimacy, I mean, that could be a number of things. Some sort of inappropriate relationship, could be a full-blown infidelity, could be pornography, anything like that. But the question was, I think it was specific to the spouse that had done the betraying, and they asked if there's things that were done with my affair partner and I don't feel comfortable doing those things with my spouse now because it brings up guilt and shame is basically the gist of it. So what do I do with that, and how do I approach it? So we talked about that. Heather answered a lot of those questions, or a lot of that question, and just how redemption comes into play there. And then, I gave my side a little bit because I talked specifically about how, if that was the case for you, how do you approach that with somebody? Because we basically, the answer to that was, it would be really, really hard for me to hear you say, I don't want to do that anymore because of what I've done. And like I said last week, it doesn't matter how much forgiveness and redemption and all that, it just is a wound. And when that would just be one of those things that immediately would come up of, oh, wait a second, but you did that with somebody else, but
Right.
you know, that type thing. So we don't have to get into a lot of details there, but what we wanted to do, because we had a lot of people come back and say, okay, hold on, we want to hear from Rusty. Like, what is it that, you know, what are those type feelings like for me? And I don't really know how to twist this question around so much because there's a whole lot of ways that we could attack this. And really, to be honest, I'm not going to put you on the spot too much by asking you to do this, but as we're talking about it, I would love for you to ask me questions, because I think what would be helpful too is for the person that has done the betraying, for them to maybe get a glimpse of, you know, like, what are the things that you think about, like, what's going on in my mind, and how would you, you know, so I don't know what kind of questions you would have about that. I can answer some things, but the first thing that I want to say, just in regards to this whole, really the blanket, I guess, question is the physical healing. You know, how do we, if I've been betrayed and we want to heal our marriage, what are the things that I'm thinking about, and how do I address that with you?
Right.
So that it doesn't, you know, bring up lots of guilt and shame for you, but also it can help me to heal.
Yeah.
And so, so I want us to kind of address it in that way. But as we do, you ask me some questions.
Yeah, I think that what I worried about the most, or heard you talk about the most, was the amount of images that you had in your head. And we've talked several times about the fact that they were probably even worse in your head than they were in real life, but you just couldn't get them out of your head. And so, like, for the person who's listening that's like, hey, I was betrayed, and boo-hoo that you have trouble, you know, with this part. You're the one that did the betraying. But what about me, who I didn't even do anything, and this is part of my story now? Like, how do you battle those images that you talk so often about?
Well, so the thing that the person, first of all, let me just give some I guess disclaimer, in that I believe that we are all so different. I mean, there's a difference, I believe, too, in a male and a female,
for sure,
and maybe not even male female, but just like the person, if there's the betrayed spouse is somebody that has a really high sex drive, and like not just needs sex, but like that's such an important part of their relationship, because we know that there's some some couples out there, it's just not that. I mean, we want everybody, because we believe it's very, very important. We want you to have a wonderful physical relationship, but everybody's different, and people desire it more or less. There's just a lot of factors that go into it. And so I want to be real careful to just be able to say all we can do is tell you our side, our story. And so, you know, the first thing that you said is the images. And we've had this discussion before, and we've talked with couples that, just like you said, the images are probably, we make them out differently, for sure. I think, you know, there's somebody out there, and the reason I try to listen to what you say through a lens of somebody that's listening, you know, and when you say, well, it's probably worse than you think, and my first thought is, somebody out there just went, what do you mean it's worse than you think? How could it be any worse than what you did? So here's where I'm saying, those type wounds, they're always there. And when they get uncovered or triggered or picked a little bit, that rises up. Like, even that statement, where it didn't affect me, other than I felt it, and I felt it for the person that's listening. And I felt them go, what do you mean how could it be any worse than what it is? I know what you're saying, because we create a movie in our minds. And it's almost like when you're reading a book and you're not looking or watching anything. And sometimes books can just give you a little small, and I'm not even talking about physical or sex or anything. Just like when you're
your
reading,
imagination when you're reading.
That's right. When you're reading, you just have an imagination, and you look you picture what the characters look like. They have real, personalities and all that kind of stuff. And so when you confessed to me, then I just created this movie in my mind. And that movie doesn't go away. It's really, really hard to go away, especially because you're constantly trying to fill in the details because we don't know the details.
Yeah.
And so when somebody like me says it's really, really hard to get rid of those images, well, sure it is, because we weren't there and we didn't get to see it, and we really don't know what happened. And so we just create this movie in our mind. So yes, that is an obstacle that we have to overcome. And the crazy part about that is that those images, I don't know that they ever completely leave, but we can make them go away, because just like you take thoughts captive and you replace them with, you make them obedient to Christ. And I think that's the thing that's so important, because if not, even 15 years later, I could start thinking about one of those movie clips that I have probably played over and over in my head so many times, just because of one comment or one confession, one part of the confession that maybe I asked a question and you answered it honestly. And by you answering it honestly, it caused me to create this movie clip. And so I could go back to that movie clip, but who is that helping? And what is that? I mean, that is extremely damaging. And people may be going, well, that's not our fault. Yeah, but it is your fault if you let it continue to play.
Yeah, it's on you.
That's right. You can hit stop, and you can make it stop. And so I do want people to understand that those are things that I think maybe they will never go away. I mean, it is that deep of a wound. And so for somebody like you need to know that about your spouse, that it is such a deep wound that was caused that will never go away completely. But it doesn't mean that I love you less. It doesn't mean that I want you to continually feel terrible that those images pop into my mind. That's not it at all. It's just I can't help it. And that's just part of it. So the images are it is a big thing. And I think, going back to this person's question, when you say, what about those, certain, specific things? And I remember for us, we had a situation where it took us quite a while before we just were completely comfortable. And I do think that some of that was because anytime we would start, those were things that would pop into my mind. And all I could think about was, wait a second, and even if my flesh, my body, all of the things, my needs and desires, even if they wanted that, I would stop myself and say, hang on a second, but is your heart ready for this?
Right.
And so I would make myself stop and say, I can't do this because of what you did. And so it did take time, and it took us talking about it, but so much of that was you being, like you said last week, you took my lead and were very, very patient. And, it was a lot of healing over time. I would probably venture to say that our healing was really fast-tracked in a lot of ways because of your encounter with the Lord and what happened in your life. And so our physical intimacy probably healed a lot faster than what a lot of people would, which I'm extremely grateful for. So I don't know if that helps a little bit just on the mental side and the images, but I know that was your question of how do you battle that? And then as far as if you really take that question and say, okay, well, I know of certain things that you did. And so, what is that for the person that has experienced that to go, okay, well, I don't want to do that because you did that. Or,
with someone else.
With someone else. Sometimes it could be the opposite, though, where you're like, wait a second, you did that for them, but you won't do that.
Make you forget that.
Either that, or you did that with them, and you won't do that with me.
Yeah,
like
that's
how
true.
like
That's
how
true.
much
Yeah.
that hurts.
Sure.
And so I think, to me, that's the more dangerous thing.
Yeah.
Is when there's, and that's why it goes back to, like, from your side, there has to be a conversation, but it can't be, I'm not doing that with you.
Right.
Because that's the part that hurts the worst here. It's like, wait a second, but you did, but you won't with me, that type thing. So I think that can even move into things like, frequency of, like, that's the part that can stir up inside of somebody that's been betrayed. It's like, if you get to a place where it's like, well, we haven't been intimate in a long time, man, it doesn't take but that long for you to go, you know what, that, I don't know, you had no problem then, like that type thing. And that's really, really hard. And it just happens because we have unmet expectations, we get frustrated, and when those things start stirring, man, they can just fester inside. And so that's why it's so important that we just have to talk and we have to be honest. And the only other thing that I really thought about a lot with this question, and maybe you have something you want to ask me, but besides that, this is kind of the meat, I guess, of what I wanted to share. I think that, let's just say that when we got married, that somebody said, hey, what is your dream, for how Rusty would treat you? And I don't know if you would say specifics, but the average person would say, oh man, I want my spouse to wake up every day and just consider me first. I want them to love me. I want them to show affection to me. I want them, as we get older, I want them to take care of help with the kids. I want them to provide for the family. I want, all these things. And somebody would say, well, that's great. Those are great expectations to have of your husband. And if they do those things, it's going to be a wonderful marriage. And then for you to even say, if it was even today, and somebody said, what are your what would make Rusty the perfect husband? And you may have some specific things, but it's really, you wake up in the morning and you just think about my needs. Nobody would say, gosh, you're such a selfish person. People would say, no, that's exactly what you should do as a married couple. I think sometimes what happens in when there's been sexual betrayal, that there becomes this expectation from the betrayed spouse that's almost like, I just want you to wake up each morning and basically just say, I cannot prove enough to you how grateful I am that you stayed with me, even after what I did. Okay, when you say that to people, it sounds a little bit like, let's take it a step further and just go, even physically, like, just prove that over and over again. People take that and go, you shouldn't have to live like that. You shouldn't have to wake up every day and prove yourself over and over again. Nobody wants to live. But what's the difference in a normal relationship if we had no sexual baggage,
right?
And I said, I just want her to wake up every day and just put my needs first and just prove to me every day how happy she is that I wake up every day and choose her. What's the difference? But I think what happens is, when you start twisting it into this physical thing, that people go, that's so selfish. Right. Like, you shouldn't expect.
Dirty or gross.
Right. And so, like, if I were to say to you, even in a physical, sexual sense, I want you to every day, like, I just want you to prove to me, no, you're the one that I choose.
Right.
And so people may listen and go, oh, that's great. Like, but that's also a gift from God. Yeah. And it's a good thing. But we have screwed this up so much that it literally becomes like this is a selfish thing. It's like
Right.
I want this from you. But it's not that. And so I want people to understand that so much of this, and you do such a great job with this. It's how can I serve you? And, there's never, probably one of the deepest wounds of mine is it's really hard to initiate. We've talked about that to so many people, but it's so hard because if I got rejected, I mean, I don't like it would be such a deep, deep wound to be rejected in that way. And that's not for people to go, oh my gosh, what kind of pressure is he putting on her there? It's not that. I wish that I could say, oh, and I do have the confidence. I mean, we've gone through so much together. But I do know, let me move that real quick. There we go. But I do know how important that is for you to consistently show me.
Right.
And maybe people will go, you're just having to prove yourself. But it's no different than if nothing had ever happened. That's the way we should be living anyway.
Sure.
Just like I described it,
Yeah, I agree.
So,
I agree.
Okay, what would you ask me?
Really, the only other part that I thought of, and this is just part of our story that may not necessarily be anybody else's, but both of us were virgins before we got married, and so we had been each other's only person, and we were proud of that. Yeah. And we had so many people who were like, "That's awesome." To be able to start your marriage like that, there's no comparison. There's no, and that's not the norm nowadays. Right. It's just not. I mean, it's still God's design, but it's not the norm. And so I guess my question to you, for those people out there, and maybe not even if they were virgins, but still, like, I know to be true that God can redeem even this. Like, we have had restoration, and I can remember Penny walked me through an exercise to where it was like we got a blank canvas.
Right.
And that God, I mean, because Scripture tells us our sin is, far as the east is from the west, and that it's white as snow. And she was like, you get a clean slate for this to rebuild the way that God's design was. And is, and that's still good for you guys. And so I guess my question to you is, do you feel like that has been our story? Do you feel like there has been restoration and redemption, and do you feel like it's just the two of us in our marriage bed?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question, because it's like that is something that certainly is painful. And it's painful if I think about it. It's painful to think, oh my goodness, and I don't even know that it's so much. It is, a lot of it is, I saved myself for you, you saved yourself for me. And then even after marriage, that was taken away. And that is something that's hard to take in, and if I let myself think about it.
Right.
But I also have to stop and think that, your sin, as awful as it was and damaging as it was and wounding as it was sin.
Yeah.
And I have sin in my life. And if I truly believe what Jesus did on the cross for me, in the same way that his blood and him giving his body in death for me, if that's what causes a clean slate for me, then who am I to say, yeah, but it doesn't count for you. It doesn't count because we were virgins and now, And so, yeah, I mean, and that's hard because we're not God and we don't understand all of that. But I do have to just consistently and constantly take it back to the cross.
Yeah.
And say, hey, what Jesus did on the cross, it was big enough for that too.
And it's enough. Yeah.
It's enough for that. And if I say, no, God can redeem everything
but
except the fact that now I'm not the only
Right.
one,
Right.
then I'm basically saying, well, what you did was not good enough for that.
Yeah.
And so, do I have to constantly, or not constantly, but
Yeah.
do I have to remind myself
Sure.
of that sometimes? Sure. And for those of you that are listening, please understand too, like, the gift of sex it is a gift, and God desires for that to be a strong part of your marriage. And I know that there's health things and stuff like that. There's creative ways to be physically intimate with your spouse. And it is, in a lot of ways, it's a barometer of the health of your marriage. Not just the physical act of sex, but just physical intimacy in general. It is supposed to be, it's a gift that we're supposed to share with each other. And so because of that, like the healing of it, the redemption of it, like making it something that is good again, I think it's important. I think it's so vital and important. And even when each of you are different, when you have different sex drives, when you have different wants and different desires, that's your opportunity to step in and serve and give of yourself, because that one seems a little bit more personal and a little bit more, this is mine to give you, rather than, oh, you changed the sheets on the bed or you made the bed up. But it's still, that's all just part of the marriage relationship and giving. And, we've said it so many times, but even when somebody out there is listening and you're like, I didn't really want to do that, but I was doing it to honor my spouse and serve them, nobody walks away from that most of the time. And for sure, we've said this for us. We never walk away and go, gosh, we shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Most of the time we go, why don't we do that more often?
Right.
But anyway, I just want people to know that even after the devastation of infidelity, that your marriage and the marriage bed can be restored and redeemed, and even better than it was, even pre-affair, and not just pre-affair, but even all the way back to the first night. Yeah. And I believe that. I mean, I believe that the times that we share together now are so much better and so much more meaningful than it was.
Sure.
So anyway, okay. A lot of information.
Yeah.
When you see us around town, you know a lot about us right now. I hope that that's helpful for some of you, though. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.
Peace.